Hello, everyone, and welcome to our new series, Fuel for Thought. Jonny Boyle here, the Director of Brand Experience at Fuel. And in this series, I'm going to be sitting down with the who's who of the brand and marketing industry. We're going to explore emerging trends, groundbreaking innovations, and hopefully some transformative concepts that will give you insight and inspiration, all with the aim of giving you fuel for thought. Today's guest is Louise O'Reilly, the Chief Exec of Business to Arts, which is a charitable organisation that brings the business and arts worlds together through purposeful partnerships. Our chat is going to take you behind the scenes of cultural strategies, the value that they bring to your business and brand, and the interesting role that the arts play in shaping culture today. I'm really looking forward to speaking to Louise today, as the 20 years of experience she has beyond her current role in Business to Arts is truly fascinating. It spans the arts, science, technology, business, and social innovation. So whether you're a marketeer, artist, cultural creator, or if you're just looking to stay ahead of the curve, this is a look into unpacking the power of the arts to fuel business growth. Louise, welcome to Fuel for Thought.
Thanks, Jonny.
Thanks for coming in. How are you? Is probably the best question to start with.
Sure, I'm delighted with life.
It's great to have you and really looking forward to chatting today. And I thought that the best way to start might be for you to just give us the elevator pitch on what it is Business to Arts do as an organisation.
Sure. Whether or not this is the elevator pitch, TBC, but Business to Arts, we're a 36-year-old registered charity, but what our mission is to connect the corporate and the cultural sectors through purposeful partnerships. And really, we're there to encourage more private sector investment in the arts, and by doing that, to build the capacity and the financial sustainability of the arts sector. So that's really what we're constituted to do. But what we do in practice daily, from a brand perspective and from the corporate side of the house, is we help companies to identify meaningful ways to support the arts that also meet their business objectives.
That does sound like the elevator pitch to me, which is great.
Not quite.
And before, look, there's loads of, I think, even interesting topics within what you've just said. But maybe before we dive into some of those, it might be good to maybe also just have a look at your journey to here. Like, I look at the CV and go, it's been a really interesting journey for you to this point now. Was there a specific moment along the journey where you thought, this is for me, or?
Not quite. I mean, I think it was all roads were leading to it in a long way. So my background was in arts and culture at its origin, predominantly as a producer initially, then moving more into strategic development and kind of very large scale, one of a kind, one-off, ambitious projects, sometimes international. And all of that meant that I was working in cross-sectoral way, and I liked making things happen. I was pretty fearless in getting something new off the ground, and I really enjoyed the challenge of, I suppose, speaking to people from different walks of life and different sectors and different backgrounds, and always creating the conditions for really talented people to do what they want to do. So that's obviously massively unspecific about what my actual background was, but all of those things combined meant that, and the fact that I knew Business to Arts from when I was in early stage sponsorship and fundraising work and strategic development back in the day. And so when I got the tap on the shoulder going, this job is coming up, you know, you should really think about it. I was actually, I'd actually just left Accenture, the Global Innovation Hub, the dock where I was working. I'd just been studying at King's Inns, and I'd actually just started to do an all-female accelerator program about this really unique business idea I was developing.
Okay.
So I was very excited.
So maybe you were going to go another way.
I was very mission-oriented around this new idea. And then Business to Arts chief exec position came up, and I had one of those, it's not the first time I've had one, but a fork in the road kind of moment. where it was like, okay, do I pursue this completely new idea, untested, untried, bootstrapping, the whole shebang, or do I take the opportunity to lead an organisation that has been incredibly important for the Irish arts sector and in public life in Ireland? Do I take an opportunity to lead that into its next evolution? And by doing so, to give back to the art sector that I so love and appreciate and value so much in Ireland, as well as opening that up to so many others on the business side of things. And so I said, sure, I better give it a shot. And here I am.
No looking back.
Yeah.
It strikes me that you probably have brought a unique perspective to it too, because you've been able to bridge the gap maybe a little bit between business and arts in the background.
Definitely.
So you definitely bring a perspective that I'm kind of interested to wonder, maybe even from your background and now in your role as chief exec, is there, what's the most noticeable change maybe in the relationships between the business and the arts in the last couple of years?
Yeah. So how I like to describe it, and it's an observation, I suppose, over the past probably 15 years in particular, would be, we all know the way, so certainly you guys in Fuel would know the way that sponsorship was very transactional and occasional, right? So it was, and I'm being a little bit generalist and facetious here, but it was like splashing the cash, logos everywhere, wham, bam, thank you, man, off we go. It was very transactional and occasional. Whereas we've been advocating for and educating our business members around moving towards more relational and durational form of partnerships. And so that move is not just and only because of the work we do in business to arts, but is also reflective of the broader I suppose, societal changes and impact on business and how people do business, how business is valuing a little bit more what society requires from that business in terms of its citizenship role, and that meaningful impact, whether that's on your suppliers, your employees, your local community, your broader audiences, is achieved through doing something that's a little bit more relational and durational. So multi-annual partnerships, considered, thoughtful engagements where, humanity is drawn out, and kind of brought to the fore. And so they're what really work, I think.
Yeah, it's less passion projects and more purposeful partnerships.
Well,
maybe as
I think the passion's still there.
Yeah.
I think the passion's very much still there.
Good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'd love to chat about cultural strategies a little bit more. Is certainly one of the things in preparing for our chat that struck me as one of the parallels I'd love to just understand more about. So could you tell us a little bit more about exactly what is a cultural strategy, even briefly, let's say?
If we're talking about the cultural strategy piece, and, what are we all trying to achieve by doing that? And what's the value add on either side? There are, 3 or 4 things that are critical, whether that's in our design of the process, the approach to why we're even doing it, and what we want to get out of it, right? And when I say we, I mean we in Business to Arts, we the business partner, we the arts partner.
Okay, so talk us through those 3 or 4 things.
Yeah, so yes, we're going to talk about authenticity, Jonny.
Good. I wanted to.
Yeah, authenticity, right? Congruence. Okay, and by that I mean making it truly congruent to what you're as the corporate, for example, the brand, your core values are, your mission, truly what you want to say, right? Not incongruent, right? Because that will raise the hackles of your audience. They will not trust you. They'll capture that in a minute, and I can tell you the arts community will. And so being congruent, right, on both sides, making sure that whatever that project or partnership is authentic and congruent. making it relevant. Always be useful, ABU, right? So making it relevant to the key stakeholders, whether that's your clientele, whether that's your, your audience, your board, the local community. Who are the key stakeholders? Make it relevant to them, make it useful to them, right? Listen to the needs of those stakeholders. What do they need? And particularly if you're going to work with an arts organisation, you need to understand, what does the arts organisation need? What does the art form or the community it's serving need, right? And answer that need. So be relevant, be useful. And also, just to the being relevant and piece, is in the process that we design, we ensure that there's a very broad range of stakeholders involved in the strategy development, right? Because too often, historically, you may have had a leader in a company who was a big fan of the arts, and fantastic, and they may have also held the budget and sign off, etc. Fantastic, but when that person retired or when that person went on to another company, all was lost with them.
Yeah.
Whereas we absolutely, when we're developing our arts and culture strategies, we believe in the goal is about embedding this process in arts and culture in the DNA of the company, right across loads of different departments, across various different stakeholders within the actual company, senior, very senior, and as well as across the company. And so that's incredibly important, that stakeholder inclusion. And that goes as well then once you get further into it and you're trying to work in a particular maybe art form or arts area or community. So what did I say? I said authenticity and congruence. I said make it relevant, useful, always be useful. And then make it sustainable. It's the word that kind of, it's a very all-encompassing word, because I'm actually talking about sustainability from a viability and kind of operational perspective. Will it actually work over multiple years? Will the model, even if you don't invest more than a number of years, will that model stay as something sustainable and viable for that arts organisation, for example, to continue? They may have to look for another partner, or it may be self-funding in the future. Has it got sustainability built into it from a financial perspective? I'm talking about. That's really critical. Don't just drop a wad of cash and walk away and say it all has to be spent this year. That's upsetting,
Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable, and it can be very detrimental to an arts organisation who might pretzel themselves into all sorts of different shapes, in the past to serve the needs of what this money, these covenants and conditions that came with this money, that can also be really, really harmful to an arts organisation and its financial and resource sustainability. Do you know what I mean? The humans, the people.
Yeah. What strikes me, what's interesting maybe about the 3 and 4 critical factors that you've called out there, is that collaboration is going to be involved the whole time. Mm-hmm. It's not just at a point and, as you say, then let's walk away and leave that with those people. But it's an ongoing bit where you need to keep stakeholders engaged the whole time. From your experience, that's certainly, let me put it this way, from my experience, that's hard.
It sure is.
What's your experience of terms of having gone through that? And again, is there anything you can shed a light on that might be best practice in actually how we keep that collaboration going over that long period of time?
Yeah, it is very hard. And I think, you have to be constantly vigilant about ways to do that. For us, really, that moment I was talking about of including a lot of the stakeholders, or people who wouldn't even view themselves as stakeholders, up front in the process from the beginning, is really powerful. Because too often, as we know, a brand may be coming to think about doing something in the arts. It might come from the marketing team, or in a larger corporate entity, it may have been only in the CSR unit or something in the old days, you know what I mean? And when it's just seen as an exercise of one of those singular departments, that's actually such a shame, because there are people all over that company who maybe, I don't know, an engineer or maybe something else, and people have no idea that they have a grand passion for the arts, or might be very deeply knowledgeable about a certain area of it and have great ideas. And that's the same at senior leadership, which of course you do need buy-in because of the budgets, but right across the organisation. And then also giving an opportunity for younger team members to have their voices heard in this really important way at a kind of a very collegiate level, where quite often, and I have to say I really enjoy when we're doing these sessions, workshops with companies, where if there's a fairly high level of, feels like initial kind of tentative, maybe some fear, like of the unknown, I don't know anything about the arts, I'm going to sound stupid, all of that. What we absolutely love doing in Business Starts, and we do this a lot through our kind of annual calendar of events, etc., is really breaking down that binary of like, business doesn't understand the arts and arts doesn't understand business, and everybody's afraid to say what they think about that painting. And you know what I mean? We love breaking that down and making everybody really comfortable and finding their own way in to something that is truly for everyone, and that everyone does experience in some way in their lives, whether they see it as that or not.
Yeah.
And that's to do with perception as well. And so around that piece around how do you keep everybody engaged and collaborative and all of that is at the very early stages, having that very collegiate workshop, discovery, safety kind of space that we create. That's also quite exciting. People feel very energized coming out of this. And I know you can go back to your day-to-day and, it all goes out the window. So we try to keep it moving. And then we get down to brass tacks of, okay, how are we going to implement all this bigger picture thinking and make this practical and meet your objectives? And we love doing that think, feel, do exercise where we, it's easy for them to think about themselves as a company. It might be easy for them to think of their audiences because they're thinking about that every day, or their customers or whatever. Now, think like an artist. What do you need? Think like a member of your local community. What do they need? Because you are potentially one of those people as well.
Yeah.
You are not just X person in X role.
Yeah.
So
it's back to the human bit that you were
what
talking
we're human, yeah.
about. Exactly.
Yeah.
It strikes me there's a bit of magic also there in what you said around, maybe there's a perception, right or wrong, that when these kind of partnerships come about, it's at a top level. It is, management level talking to the arts organizations and doing that. But it sounds interesting what you're saying, that actually it's getting perspectives from throughout the business is really key in maybe keeping and mobilizing that energy around how we engage people in it. So
yeah,
there's a question in there somewhere, which is this, I think. Sorry.
Okay.
So we're talk about the Business Starts Awards program as well, but maybe as a kind of a lead into that. Full disclosure, I've been lucky enough to be part of a couple of award entries that have won, which is great. But one of the things that struck me or surprised me in that process was actually how powerful some of these partnerships are in engaging employees. So rather than it just being about the out in culture bit, actually internally, how it can impact cultures is unbelievable. And it seems like there's a bit of magic maybe there.
Yeah, it's the holy grail, isn't it? The old engaging employees, and even harder post-pandemic, I think everyone's finding. We actually even have a specific awards category for, what is it called? Creativity in the workplace. And so effectively that's the employee engagement category. And that was very much of its time. It became a new thing because it was so high up on the objectives, the business objectives of corporates who are investing in the arts. And definitely we like to think that our approach to that strategy development, cultural strategy development, helps with that employee engagement piece, because whatever will come out of it once the strategic blueprint is there, and once it gets into operations of actually choosing various partners, the idea being always that the original kind of workshop group might be the first art committee or whatever you would like to call it, resource group, whatever you might like to call it, in your business, and that they would actually be the ambassadors and advocates out in the company and beyond for the work that's chosen to, or for the partnerships, etc., and for the implementation of the strategy, and then that gets regenerated annually or whatever the cadence might be, depending on the company. So that's definitely a way of doing it.
The follow-on for me actually is interesting. It's not only about the current employees, but it's actually, if you really are doing these purposeful partnerships
Totally.
well, how you can then use that to attract new people in.
100%. The talent attraction and retention piece is critical. As we know, the younger, that makes me sound old. The younger generation.
I say that all the time.
How do we say it? Do you know what I mean? Graduates, new
Yes.
graduates, coming out are much more, or so we're hearing, are much more purposeful in how they're choosing who they're going to work for, and looking into the integrity of that company, the values of the company, what the company spends its time doing when it's not, making money, and for sure, certainly anecdotally, we've been told that, high-profile arts partnerships that have really touched a chord with somebody have made often a difference in their choice of joining that company, or certainly has given a very positive affinity towards that company. And so that's a huge struggle for all businesses at the moment, is retaining the ones they have, the great talent they have, and then attracting new ones. So I think, listen, sports is fantastic. It's never us arts against sport. That is not a thing. I absolutely adore my arts and culture, but I am also 100% in there for rugby and hurling, right? Okay, in the middle of the pitch if I could be. So they are not a binary thing. It's not an us against them. And so you can have multiple different sports sponsorships and have very diverse or broad portfolio of sports, which certainly will get you breadth and width of profile and eyeballs and all of the rest just by sheer numbers. But does it give you the depth of engagement and the emotional connection? Well, okay, we'll give you some of the emotional connection, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But like this other kind of emotional connection where you can have these very rich conversations with the person next to you, whether they're a peer, a colleague, or a senior leader in your business as a young graduate. You can be at the same show, or, doing a curator-led tour of an exhibition or something, where you're engaging about something on a level as humans and peers together. That's an opportunity, right? That's beyond, classic networking or whatever. That is about deep relationship building and engaging in arts and culture, whether it's music, whether it's going to the theatre, whether it's spoken word, whatever it is, that can really, unlock that for you. And we see that at our awards that we have every September. Like, it's such an incredible night for networking. You've got over 50% of the audience are like C-suite, right? Business leaders who invest in the arts or are interested in investing in the arts. And then arts and culture leaders from all over Ireland. The atmosphere it's in the National Constable the last couple of years, the atmosphere in that huge, lovely lobby space in the John Field Room is just electric.
Stunning.
It's buzz, 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 buzz. And then, of course, during our awards, we have loads of performances and that kind of thing. It is electric. We have people up on their feet. Tell me another awards that are like that, especially if you're in the business world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what you get is people completely elated or deeply emotional, struck, by the stories they're hearing on stage of what's winning, the amazing partnerships. They're completely inspired afterwards. Like, it's just game-changing. And that's the power of the arts.
And talk to us maybe about the awards specifically then. So just not to ask you maybe, who your favourite children are, but what comes to mind, maybe one or two case studies that have won in the last year or two that really stand out as great collaboration between business and the arts?
I'm going to talk about a very unique one that actually won just this September gone, which was part of the ESB Brighter Futures Arts Fund. Now, what that was a 250k fund for 5 projects across the island that those projects were, the brief was to raise awareness and drive conversation around the drive to net zero, and discussion around what we can do. And a really interesting brief for arts organisations, and the 5 different projects took various different routes to that. But in Dublin, the one that was funded in Dublin was a quite significant commission of a dance commission of Dublin Dance Festival.
That's not what I expected you were going to say.
Yes, get this. Dance, who commissioned, Dublin Dance Festival, who in turn commissioned Liz Roach Company to choreograph a completely new piece of dance that, spoke about our relationship with nature and the evolution of that, mixed with working with a company called Lightscape, who you guys know them? Yeah. Who worked with generative AI and incredible technology to make this site-specific work that was bringing to life ESB's new headquarters building on Fitzwilliam Street. So in the incredible external atrium of that Grafton Architects design building, you had a purposefully choreographed piece of dance performed by, I think there were about 8 dancers during Dublin Dance Festival, with these screens embedded in the ground and also horizontal and vertical around this beautiful atrium, where these incredible imagery, generated, some by generative AI and some by humans, from the guys at Lightscape, combined to tell this overall, and by the way, beautiful music composed by Brian Crosby, and all combined. So that was 3 commissions effectively in one. 3 art form commissions in one, to talk about our relationship with our world and our need to drive towards net zero. Now, what that opened up, you might say, what the hell was ESB getting out of that? What that opened up for them was endless conversations in a really unique and dynamic way. Very progressive. That's really progressive. Like, there's not a lot of brands out there who would be willing to put a significant amount of money into something that risky and that dynamic. 3 art forms in one to talk about climate change. And you know what I mean? Like, it's really, that was really significant work.
Look, I warned, I think, in the intro that this was going to be a fascinating conversation, and my head is certainly spinning. We may have to have a second part at some point. But maybe to take us out, is there one piece of advice maybe we could take, and listeners listening in, that you would offer to people in terms of how to go about creating some of these purposeful partnerships between the business and the arts?
Yeah, I would say come and talk to us at Business to Arts. That's your first stop. We will take you by the hand, we'll listen carefully, and we'll take you on a wild and wonderful journey.
Amazing.
Where all your dreams will come true.
I think that is a good shout. Look, Louise, thanks a million for your time. It's been great to talk, and thanks again.
My pleasure, Jonny. Thanks so much.